jump right in.
Hi, this is Paul, and this is Dave W. Some of you might know Dave W. He's been around the corner quite a while, and he is the spark that has initiated a estuary conference coming up in October that is being called South Estuary. And while Midwestuary is getting a lot of promotion, Southwestuary is less well known, although deep corner insiders know about it. And so, in the hopes of giving South Estuary a little bit more publicity, we thought maybe we should do a little conversation. And I said, well, maybe we should do a little bit of randoing Dave W. because he gave me a ride back in where was that you gave me a ride?
Like 5 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we were where were we?
Well, you were there in your office. I don't know. I was in this room, but I was just turned around where you could only see just my blank wall. I
Oh,
just turned my
okay.
computer.
All right, all right. I meant me. Anyway,
I mean, like,
so
where were we in
I thought
TLC?
you gave me a ride at some point in your car.
Oh, like a real ride, like
Yeah.
that take you for a ride. Yes, I did in Chicago.
Yes.
I was your
Yes.
Uber. I
It was
was
that
your
little
Uber driver.
Chicago conference that
That's right.
happened. That
That's right.
was on my way to Synod. Yeah, I knew because you had you had driven like all night or something. I mean, you were
Yeah.
um yeah.
I was looking at it and I was like, do I go? Do I don't? I guess I'm not going. Then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. And it was like 5, 6 p.m. and I just took off in my car. And of course I hit something in some major city that made me stop for like an hour and a half. And so I got there at like 5 in the morning. They didn't have the room available because I was like trying to convince them that I'd rented the room from the night for the night previous so I could have my few hours left for that night. But finally I got into the room and I fell asleep for like 20 minutes and I woke up right as I had to go pick you up. So I just like 10 minutes before
Yep.
I pick you up. So it was like a shotgun shower and then down
y-
into the lobby. Yeah. So,
Yep.
so
I remember.
yeah, so you got a very I let you drive that day because I was
Yep.
really, really tired and I was just pouring black coffee down my throat to try to listen to the speakers and everything.
Yep.
But eventually I was able to drive and so I was your glorified Uber
That's right. That's
with
right.
several other people. Bethel McGrew, which poor Bethel had to be, catch a ride with me.
Well, let's get into your story a little bit. Tell me about the house that you grew up in.
Well, I didn't grow up in one house. Um, my family moved around a lot. My father was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. So
Mm.
we were moving around within a relatively small geographical area in the southeast. I think you said southwestuary.
Oh, did I? I keep saying that
I think at some point it's
Southestuary.
southeastuary, but um, um, so I would describe. So I don't really have this one house. Like I have a bunch of different, like I have an apartment we started in, then I have another rental house we had, and then I have another house that we had that was a rental, and then finally we were able to afford our own house, which was pretty less than awesome.
Well, tell
But
me about. I'm misspeaking a lot today, which is pretty normal. I said Southwestuary to my wife, and I said it's in North Carolina. She's like,
it's like,
"Why
where?
would they name it that there? Shouldn't it be in Arizona?" No, South Estuary.
You're
So the
trying to confuse people.
I am. So, and then I said house you grew up in. I should have said home you grew up in. So you moved around a lot of little houses, and your father was sort of trying to find
Yeah,
how
just
did all that moving, how did that impact you growing up?
at the time it just seemed like the normal thing, but I think the going to like entering a new school system every 18 months to 2 years is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Even if well, it's just pretty tough. And socially. And so I was pretty much from the beginning, I would say from first grade. not kindergarten, but from first grade, I was the outcast and I was bullied.
Mm.
At first, I was taunted. Um, and then by the time I was around 11, 12. It started turning physical from the boys, but nothing too crazy. And then we moved again. I went to junior high, and there I got the crap kicked out of me all the time.
Oh man.
So yeah, so that came to a head when I was like held back and like because I would get suspended every time I was in a fight, even though I never threw a punch. Because like I had that thing. I was a very I mean, I guess I should back up a little bit. My church we started Baptist and um, we had a schism as a kind of a charismatic wave blew through the church. It became Pentecostal, and we were independent, Baptists. So I'm pretty fundamentalist, and we became Pentecostal in everything. I would say everything but snakes, Pentecostal. We follow down, we would speak in tongues and all that. Um, and so what I would say is that for me, when I was being hit by those kids, I would always think of Christ talking about turning the other cheek, and
Mm.
and also about Christ being mocked and spat on and hit. Because then there were a couple of times when I was knocked to the ground and kicked
Wow.
and spat on, and
Why do you think you were bullied so much?
because I was really skinny and really short, and I had glasses and I wore I wore glasses and I read a lot of books, and I was so quiet, and I just wanted to be left alone.
Wow.
But there was also a racial component because the three ringleaders were black, and they were taking out whatever kind of resentment they had
Wow.
on me, and so ultimately I ended up with a concussion. I ended up in the hospital, and my mom knew about it because my parents my parents split up, so they got a divorce. So I was with my mom, and um, she was like, "Well, you've got to do something about it." And my father talked to me, and he said, "You've got to learn how to fight." So I called up a number. It just said martial arts in my hometown, which is the same town that I'm in now because I've been here since I was 11. Although I've gone away, I've moved back. Um, and it turned out to be a Taekwondo class. So I got up to green belt Taekwondo by the time I was 15, and I was able to change school systems, and that turned out to be um, it was interesting because no one ever messed with me again. There were some kids that would challenge me to fights, but it wasn't like I had to throw a punch or show anything or even say much of anything. They could just see in my eyes that I had the confidence, but um, and so they'd just run away, you know.
Huh.
So it
So
never,
so the martial arts training gave you the confidence, but you never actually had to use it.
no, only in tournaments. I didn't win a tournament ever, but I won a few matches. And so
Okay.
that made me feel like, oh, I can at least win a fight against someone that's as good as me or possibly even a little bit better than me, at least occasionally. It's at least possible. So technically I have punched people, but it was in a very controlled environment, you know,
Okay.
in a dojo and tournaments and stuff.
So I mean, you pretty clearly had a rough growing up. Your parents split up, you moved around a lot, you had church dislocation,
Hmm.
um, and the the martial arts training, the Taekwondo definitely helped sort of put your life on a better track. Where did you split time between your dad and your mom?
Mostly no. By that time, I would say it was my mom, and my father was he would sort of come into the picture and just sort of
Hmm.
disappear. But he was never this person that I was unhappy to see or that
Yeah.
was abusive or that it was nothing like that. So,
Yeah.
like when you think about my childhood, and there are some things that I'm just not going to talk about, but it was
Sure.
I would say it was maximally terrifying, but it was also maximally beautiful as well. So it's not,
Really?
yeah, yeah, it's not just an unending veil of tears. Um,
Okay.
but I had a pretty rough upbringing in the sense of like emotional stability and family stability and um, that sort of thing. And then I had my I had my high school sweetheart.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and
well,
there
that sounds a little surprising. I mean, because it sounded like you were sort of low on the hierarchy, and in high school to actually land a sweetheart, that's an accomplishment that I didn't really have a sweetheart in high school. I wasn't able to do that. So,
I knew taekwondo. I
so
mean,
so tell us about her.
well, I mean, we were all outcasts still. So
Mm,
like you were talking about the social hierarchy, but the outcasts in a high school, they find each other and they don't care that they're outcasts because
yeah,
like they're the best people in the world and those cool kids can, you know, do whatever they want and we don't care.
yeah,
And sure enough, they just ignore it. They ignore the outcasts.
yeah,
It's just you don't exist.
yeah,
So we did all sorts of things. Like we were, we were mostly latchkey kids because most of our parents were divorced, not all, but most of
yeah,
our parents were divorced. So it was easy for us to just be free range.
yeah.
And we loved it that way. I mean, we ranged freely. So I would say like well with her, she was an outcast who felt that um well, first of all, she started going to church with me. She converted to Christianity. She felt like that was the true path, and she was going to this church that I was going to.
Okay.
And so we were in the youth group together
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I went off to a university for my freshman year. And the plan was for her to, and in fact, she eventually got received into the university. And it's a private Christian place, and it doesn't matter where it is. It's just in the South. But she got received into the school, but that didn't work out because uh, um, over Thanksgiving break, there was a car accident and she died. Yeah, and yeah, yeah. And so this is a major turning point in my life. And so I returned to school. I returned to school before the semester was even over, and I tried to take my the weird thing was I didn't tell anyone because I just didn't know what to say. So I just didn't tell anyone in my school. So I just kind of walked around like basically like a zombie. And um but I took all the tests and failed every single one of them. So I failed every class in my freshman year. And then I think my father went and talked to the dean and told him what had happened.
This,
My son is under a little bit of duress, and I think those fails still counted towards my, abysmal GPA by the end. But um, I think the next semester I realized that like I was slowly losing this grasp on my faith.
wow.
Because what was happening was I was returning home over and over again. And of course, I had her grave, and I would go and sometimes I would just spend the night there. I would put my sleeping bag down on her grave and just sleep there. But um, so all kinds of things. Like people were telling me that she was demon possessed, and that's why she um had made a mistake because it was her mistake technically in the accident. She veered into the other lane and was hit by a truck. Um, and and so they were saying, well, demons must have taken control of the steering wheel or possessed her and
This is
done.
the only option they can come up with.
That was the option that was on offer at the time. And at that point, I realized something was going on too with the pastor. The pastor was acting sketchy, and I was getting less than naive in my actions, in my beliefs and everything. And I realized something was going on. There started to be these challenges between myself and the pastor, who I regarded kind of as a father figure, because I didn't really have a dad so much. And he basically just he was on the warpath about me. He was like, you're wrong. You're in a different place than we're at, and you're not one of us. And then finally it came to a place where he just said to me, you're not welcome here anymore. And so I just left. I just walked out of the door, got in my car, and I drove away, and that was it. And I thought, I'm not a Christian anymore. And sure enough, um, I wasn't a Christian again for well, I was interested in Christianity again, but I wasn't really a Christian again until like 12 years later, until I was officially a Christian again. But so I have a pretty severe like deconstruction story due to domicide, and none of the stuff that most people go through, like with Charles Darwin and everything. I heard about that stuff when I was 12 from one of my secular neighbors who also went to my school. Um, and we talked about it, and I just said, "Oh, so God made humanity slowly and rather than quickly. Okay, I'll just keep on believing." He was just astonished, and he explained to me Platonic realism and the Jungian archetypes, and I was like, and suddenly I was fascinated by Platonic thought and the Jungian archetypes. So anyway, moving on. When I was in college, um, I studied religious studies and comparative religious studies, and I was really studying, you know, different religions and trying to understand them. But as very much as at first I was a dystheist, which is the idea that God exists, but that he's malevolent and cruel. But that was so hard that I became an atheist. And then I eventually softened, became an agnostic. And so I was starting to do these, my major was in religious studies and starting to try to look at that stuff. So, um, but college for me was a rough time because almost immediately once I got to college, I started drinking to numb out the pain and became an alcoholic. Um, and towards the end of my undergrad through a mentor teacher, and my father, and a certain phone call that my father gave to me. Um, I was able to be convinced to voluntarily enter a rehab, and that was a very good move. And so that sort of gave me a new lease on life, where um, I can't say too much at the level, public level, but where I had friends that I would sit in meetings with, and we would um, figure out how to not drink for that day, and I've continued that behavior to this day. So I still attend meetings.
How
And
how
so
did how did rehab interact with your faith life?
reading,
No, rehab. Oh, good. Good. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, rehab. Yeah, rehab with my faith life. Yeah. Reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now you can read that book whether you ever go to a meeting or not, so I can say that. But that, in being introduced to William James and his American pragmatism, which is in there, and having one of the prominent co-founders be under the care of Carl Jung, and Carl Jung told him that he needed to find a spiritual path. And that kind of combination of spirituality that really can work for anyone, and gods, small g gods that scale on small g gods until you can get to an ultimate god, a higher power that can really keep you and that you have a relationship with. But So it went on as a sober person, and I met a woman. I should say that I was not marriage material back in college. I was in a rock and roll band, and I was, I was filling out a stereotype like an application. You got the drugs, the sex, the loud guitars, whatever. Anyway, but at that point, I was pretty committed to try to be a good, like almost like a responsible citizen or a good person or something, without any kind of thought of organized religion. But so I got into this relationship, and it was a 5-year relationship with a woman, and we were living in sin, but at least it was a just one woman. And eventually I asked her to marry me. But then I found out she was cheating on me, and then we went through a process where she cheated on me 3 times, and it was like 2 months before the wedding, and I called it off. And I feel like I made the right decision with that. Uh, um, and then there was a quest starting at that point, and there already was a quest starting at that point. This is part of the reason we broke up, because I was having these kind of apocalyptic dreams of Christ on the cross. And I just couldn't explain it. It was like that stuff is just obviously ridiculous. Religion is, BS, and um, I don't want anything to do with that. And Christians are terrible, you know. But as it turns out, eventually I sort of submitted, and I went, with a coworker. I went to just wherever he and his wife were going, which turned out to be a PCA church. Um, that I did during the year I was there. I did a book study of the book of Romans, because it seemed to me that it wasn't saying what was claimed that it was being said. And sure enough, at the end of the year, I believed that I was right and the Calvinists were wrong. No offense, Pastor. Um, and so, with sadness actually, because the people were so friendly and so
Hmm.
welcoming, and nobody was treating me poorly. I mean, and they did not want me to go. They were expecting me to become a PCA pastor,
Hmm.
which I think would probably, thank God, the PCA is probably better off if without me as the pastor. They should rejoice, but like, I mean, really. But but from there I went to an Anglican church, and that was fantastic. But they were like really enamored with Orthodox theology.
Hmm.
Um, and this is in it's like early 2000s at this point. And And so I'm starting to read these things about the Eastern Orthodox Church, and I'm suddenly realizing I'm about to be Catholic or Orthodox. And I'm like, this is really inconvenient. And then I'm like, well, I guess it's going to be Catholic. So I looked into some of that, and then I compared it to Orthodoxy, and it was like, uh-oh. I think I know what I'm going to be. And I walked into my first Vespers, and I was like, it's just that's like not many people are mad, about it, but I was a little bit miffed because it wasn't popular in any way. It was
Hmm.
everybody considered that it was a cult, or they thought I was an Orthodox Jew, and nobody knew what was going on. And there were all kinds of evangelical interventions, but they were well-meaning. They were well-meaning. I was like, guys, I hear what you're saying, but then I'm gonna have to do it. And they're like, oh no, do not. And then, I ended up doing it. Interestingly enough, the people that understood it the most were my Episcopalian friend and my United Methodist friend. They were like, oh, this seems normal.
Huh.
I guess they got the kind of like, um I don't know. The order, the ordered service seemed to be familiar to them. They seemed to seem like it was all right, but they still thought I was, pretty crazy. But anyway, I entered the Orthodox Church. I became a catechumen in 2005 and entered the Orthodox Church in 2006. So I guess I am probably the most um, prominent member of TLC who has been Orthodox for the longest, but it doesn't make me the best Orthodox and it does not make me know everything about Orthodox theology. So I apologize about that in advance. So I'm just a layperson, trying to
So
get.
you've been in Orthodox before, and I would imagine, although when I read Molly Worthen's Apostles of Reason, which is about neo-evangelicalism, goes back to Graham in the 50s and kind of works its way through. There, I mean, there have been Orthodox churches and Orthodox interest in Orthodoxy for a while. Usually small, often sort of theologically based or liturgically based. And so you don't have to work terribly hard to find people who have made, Americans who have made their way to Orthodoxy
Right.
over the last 50 years.
Mhm.
They are out there. It's just that the uptick has happened since, sort of the Peterson Peugeot pipeline. What
Mhm.
how did you find the corner?
The corner I found through my brother-in-law gave me a link to Jordan Peterson talking about the C16 bill. And so I watched all that where he's talking to the university students. Um, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. He's really standing up for this thing. And I agree. I agree with this idea of not compelling speech. Um, I'm an American. It's not easy. It's not hard for me to agree with that. But it's sort of forgot about him after that until a little bit in the early part of 2018. I wasn't really paying attention to him. And I guess it was that it was still every now and then looking at him. I'm not sure when he did the biblical series. Do
It
you
was
remember?
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did see the biblical series and I was riveted by that. But then I was like, when is he gonna do the next thing that I'm riveted by? Um, and I guess because, coming off the heels of the Kathy Newman, I guess
Yep.
it is.
That was 2018, early
Yeah, and
2018.
that sort of made him he made him more blown up and more of a name.
Yep.
And by then, sometime early 2018, I think, I had maybe it was Peterson, but already Vervaeke with his, low level audio in his Buddhism class and all that. Yeah, 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 the early days.
Yep.
And already finding it fascinating, but even like when he started, I don't remember exactly when he started awakening from the meaning crisis, but I've watched 25 episodes of that. I need to watch the whole thing. I think I have more, you know, um, vocabulary and understanding to be able to understand better. But I was really fascinated in that. I found it really, really riveting. Even more so than Peterson. And and then Pajot came along, and the first time he talked to Peterson, I thought this is a guy that understands the kind of symbolic moves that somebody like Origin of Alexandria makes.
Hmm.
And he's doing some high level second century stuff here. Oh, but he's doing it with a mission to like agnostics and atheists, so he's trying to make it intelligible to them. And so I subscribed to his channel when he had maybe 3 or 4 subscribers because he had like one video, which he just put up the Peppy the Frog thing. And and so that was interesting, but I can't say that I get a lot of chance to watch too much YouTube anymore. Um, I am always going to be a friend of TLC. I'm always going to be grateful. And one more thing, the way I discovered you. it was like either Peterson or maybe Vervaeke were playing on. I was lying in bed and I had my laptop. I know it's terrible habit, but and it was just playing a lecture, long boring lecture, and I fell asleep. And I didn't realize at that time that you could turn off the thing where you autoplay.
Autoplay.
Yeah. Well, I got autoplayed someone, and it was this dude with this absolutely rocking beard. I mean, this beard that was just like this. And as soon as I saw him, I'm like, and this is no offense against you, Paul. You're a great guy. But I have this, I'm aware I have this negative bias. Ooh, oh God, and an evangelical pastor, turn it off. But right before I could, nuke it or whatever, you said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm freewheeling, baby. And I was like, and for some reason, right at that moment, I was like, all right, I'm giving him 2, 3 more minutes. And by the end of that 2, 3 minutes, I was like, and I don't know how I can tell this, but I guess it's because I've been, there's been a lot of betrayal and a lot of backstabbing in my life and having to make it on my own and that kind of thing. And then I have friends and they support me, so I don't want to present myself as too much of a sob story right now. But um, within 2 or 3 minutes, I just knew you were a trustworthy, good man. And I don't know how to tell. I just knew it. And so went the subscribe and then started the PVK addiction. I'm telling you, I went to see some people in one of my friends out in Cali for his 40th birthday. And I couldn't really do anything with the internet. And I went to massive PVK withdrawal because I was every single video at that time. You was like, bam, bam, another PVK. You put out 3 or 4 videos a day, and I was on it. I made sure I was watching it all. I don't have quite that time now, but so I don't know. I've kind of lurked behind the scenes primarily because I have this thesis, I guess you could say, that when you turn on a camera and you record something and you know it's going to be shown on the internet, that it's in some manner real and in some other manner a complete performance
Yeah.
for a camera
Yep.
and for an audience which are coming downstream.
Yep.
Um, and I guess the trick is to do it long enough to forget the performance aspect, the performative aspect. But I never felt comfortable with the camera trained on me. Today, though, I feel okay
Good.
and not too performative.
Good. Good.
And then I would say, like at this point, um, yeah, I'm an Orthodox Christian. Not the best one, not the worst one, I guess, but one. And that's it. And I'm organizing a conference.
Well, how did that start? Because, well, so what part of what happened with these conferences, um, Catherine Wilson sort of kicked this thing off with the Thunder Bay conference. And she contacted me and said, I'm putting together a conference. I'm having Peugeot and Vervaeke come, and I'd like you to come too. I said, okay. And so we did Thunder Bay. And then they had the German festival and they invited me, and Vendonk heard about it and was like, I'm coming too. And so Vendonk and I went to Europe. And then after that, Vendonk is like, well, what's happening next? And I said, well, I think it'd be good for I think it'd be good for the estuary movement if there were more of these conferences. And then I said, John, why don't you do one? And so he did the Chino one.
Hmm.
But a lot of people early on thought that I should sort of centrally manage this thing. And
Hmm.
I know myself, if I have to centrally manage it, it's not going to happen. So I said, no, I can't do that.
Right.
It's just not who I am.
Myself, yeah.
Let people, let people decide they want to do a conference and then have the conference they want to have.
Hmm.
And of course, the Estuary then sort of had a leadership team, and Nate Heil was volunteered to help coordinate live events. And of course, he did the Northwestuary, which I think was a really amazing conference. And then Chad sort of got the ball rolling on the Midwestuary. And then I heard, okay, there's going to be a South Estuary, and Dave W was going to do the South Estuary, and I thought, well, that's interesting because I mean, you've been on the Discord, I mean, you've been in the comment section for a long time, but you didn't do like say Sam or Luke or
Yeah.
Grizz or Chad. You didn't start a channel. You didn't do any of that. You've sort of been, fairly quiet. You leave comments fairly regularly, but and
Mm.
then I hear, okay, there's going to be a South Estuary, and Dave W is sort of getting this going. So it's like, oh, this will be interesting. So tell me why this thing came about.
Well, Nate gave me a call and he said, I'd like you to do it.
Oh, really? So Nate
And
put you up to it.
yeah, and he was in ill health um at the time. And how are you gonna say no? And but the bastard didn't die. And now I'm stuck planning this friggin' conference. No. Um, but yeah, so I mean it's just I don't know. I think it's all for the best, and he was drawing me out of myself, and he knew I wasn't comfortable in public, any kind of anything. And he wanted me to be more comfortable. So I guess I just wanted to let people know too that I I did stop commenting mostly on YouTube videos during Lent because I was being kind of a holy terror with my keyboard. And I learned how, and sometimes on Discord, I am still on Discord, but sometimes I've tried to be good at least for a month now. But during Lent, I just, nuked it. But I did leave one comment on Sherry's and Jeremy's new channel last night, just, glad
What
that,
did they call it? I haven't
um,
found it yet.
something about, I'm not sure. They call it restoring meaning. So they've decided to do that.
All right. I'm subscriber number 33.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. So I would say, so about the conference, the main thing that makes this conference different, is that, um, you're not going to be able to fly into a major U.S. city, or if you do, you're going to have to fly to Asheville, North Carolina from that city. It's not held at a major, in a major U.S. city.
Oh, wait, where is it held?
It's held at Lake Junaluska Conference and Retreat Center in Western North Carolina, which is surrounded by the Smoky Mountains. So there is a little town called Waynesville, North Carolina, and we'll be going in there at night to do some things, and everyone's welcome to come with us. Um, this is Friday, October 17th and Saturday, October 18th, when the actual conference parts are happening. Um, and our theme is Even So Come, an invitation to dialogos. Um, and what I would say is that we're going to try to practice dialogos amongst people even on the stage. We're going to have people sitting and talking on the stage rather than only speaking. We may have a speaker or two. They're welcome to if they want. But we're going to try to have these sort of semi-estuary-ish we'll say at least dialogos on a stage where there's not a predetermined um there's a topic perhaps, but there's not a predetermined what the person is going to say about the topic. And then we're going to have estuary breakout groups, and the speaker guests will also be estuary leaders, and they'll be mingled among the people. And we'll talk about what we've been listening to and life, and no topic too taboo, I guess. But as far as the even so come, for me, no, Nate came up with that, but for me, that just means like if you're a Christian of any stripe, come on. If you're not a Christian, that's fine. If you're a Jew, well, we've got a Jew on stage, Yusuf Rasin. Um, but if you're Islamic, come on. If you're Buddhist, if you're Taoist, you get the picture. Um, but if you're also like, well, I'm not really anything, come on. Even so, come. We're not here to convert you. Oh, this is going to flip people out. If you vote for Republicans or vote for Democrats, even so, come. I don't know, after hours, maybe you can get some arguments, but I'm gonna try to discourage those. That's not what we're here for, is to establish a political order. We're looking for meaning in life. We're looking for real connection, intimacy, personalism, dialogue that is not only Socratic dialogue, but personal Socratic dialogue, which is really what dialogos means. It's like seeing the other person through their words. And that's what we really want to see and hear you and hear what you have to say, no matter how crazy it is. The crazier, the more interesting it'll be. So come on, come on, come on. And I can tell you that it is Dr. Chris Green, who's a Pentecostal Anglican. Jordan Green Hall of Vervaeke fame is going to be there. Nate Heil of Grail Country YouTube fame. Esther Meek, an American philosopher slash theologian, is going to be there. Yosef Ratzin, who is an Orthodox Jew, is going to be there. And Sherry Suter of TLC and Grail Country and um, Finding Meaning or whatever the new channel is. Um, she's going to be one of the guests and possibly a VIP guest. We'll see about that. Um, and um, but we got good guests, and I don't want you to think of this as like too heavily drawn from Grail Country. You may be surprised if we have any kind of guest speaker, you may be surprised at how what links I go to try to bring in someone like if the first one doesn't work out, maybe try to bring in someone like Sam Tiedemann and just really, really have a contrast to what and Josef Fretzen, is an Orthodox Jew, is going to provide a contrast. There's
Yeah,
no so and not all of us are Orthodox. You don't need to be an Orthodox Christian.
yeah,
Worry about
yeah,
it. Don't worry, whoever you are, come as you are.
yeah,
Come as you are. But uh just letting you know that these are tickets that are the same price as Midwestuary, and I'm going to be at Midwestuary myself, and I can't wait to see you all. Um, but if you want one, we would like to have at least 30 people at this place. And I think that that would be real intimate and nice. Now we can put in plenty more if you so choose. And we'll try to get the website and the email, I guess, in the comment section for
I'll
this.
put them below.
All right. And then if you do have some kind of, if you can't afford the ticket, but you can get here otherwise, please email the conference planners at the official conference planning thing, and we'll see what we can do about that.
Okay. Okay. What else we can do? Well, you said you talked about the size thing, and it sounds like, well, you can have more than 30, but it sounds like you want it fairly intimate. Um,
I think it's going to be whether I want it or not, because there's not going to be that many people there. But it'd be fine if it was 50. But for me, like it can go up to 100.
yeah.
We're selling 80 tickets because there's
Okay.
20 reserved spaces for
Okay.
other people. It might hit 100 or possibly even because it doesn't exceed the fire code, and I've talked to them. It might
Okay.
be like 102, 103. It's not going to
Okay.
be much more. But that I don't envision that being the case. I
Okay.
envision it being like 30 to 50 people. And I
Okay.
think it'll be perfect.
Yeah, I think that's a nice size. That's a nice size.
Yeah.
So
This
late
would be
June 11th.
something like a tenth of, you know, uh, Midwestuary out in the wilderness, and you're just kind of like looking at the ridiculous number of stars, and that, for entertainment if you get bored at night.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It sounds absolutely wonderful. So there are three things this fall I have to decide between. One is your conference. Um, in the beginning of November in Europe, their Breakwater is having an event with Nathan Jacobs, and it's like an atheist YouTuber. He's going to be there, and I'm invited, but they're not planning on me. Um, Yours is a little easier to get to for me, but the third one is I have to decide whether or not I'm going to do another tiny little estuary retreat at my sister's place, and I cap that at a dozen. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do it or not. The nice thing about that is I get a chance to see my mom. So I get four estuary weeks away from the pulpit at Living Stones, and I've used three of them. So I've got one left, and I have to decide how to spend it. And so it's going to be one of those three things. Um, but
Mhm. Mhm.
I haven't
No
decided.
pressure, PVK. We'd love to have you there. You, of course, will be given the stage as the VIP guest. Otherwise, we'll have to find someone much more famous than you. We're just gonna go grab Jordan Peterson. We're just gonna call him up and be like, "Get your ass over here." And when I say jump, he says, "How high?" But um,
Well, I think it's going to be a tremendous event. I really loved how the Northwestuary, how that one came about. I mean, I don't know if I'd
did
ever
you
been to
go
a
to
conference
that
that was so
one?
well balanced.
You did go, yeah,
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 yeah, it
yeah.
was
But
really good.
this is gonna be so much more well balanced.
Well,
Jumping for
I
you.
really like small events. I
It's
really
gonna be
like small
small.
events.
It'll be small, and we'll have these like intimate estuary groups, and you won't regret it. You'll remember it for the rest of your life, or regret it for the rest of your life.
All right. All right. No,
Mhm.
I think it'll be wonderful. I think it'll be wonderful. Anything else people should know? Now, you said how far, if they fly into, you said Asheville is the closest airport?
Mhm.
Okay. How far away is it
It's
from there?
about 45 minutes.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Not too bad, but from my house, the way I take with not using the interstate, it takes about an hour and a half. But
Okay.
it's not too bad. And you'll be out in the middle. I promise you'll be in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And lodging, there's lodging right there. It's
It's
a retreat
lodging.
center.
So I'll talk just a little bit real quick about the lodging, which is on the other. Um, First of all, I'll tell you we've got breakfast available whether you choose our lodging or not. It's $60 for all 3 mornings, and that's the 17th, 18th, and 19th. It's buffet style. It's a hot buffet. You get eggs and like sausage and bacon and stuff. And Yosef is not going to do it because he has to keep kosher. But the rest of us can just go run wild. Because, but probably the basic reason is I know it's $20 every morning, but that includes the tax and everything. But also, that's where everyone's going to sit there in fellowship
That's
before.
right. That's right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
lunch is going to be a little more chaotic. Maybe different people go different places, but at night, both nights, we've already got something for Friday night, but Saturday night, we're going to plan stuff for
Okay.
the group to do. So, um,
Cool.
we got potentially got an Appalachian folk singer in a little band who's
Oh,
going to
wonderful.
play at a little place that
Oh,
south
wonderful.
side of the lake. So
No, it sounds great. I've just got to choose what I'm gonna do. I gotta choose what I'm gonna do. So, all right. Anything
use
else?
wisely, Pastor.
Yeah. No, well, I feel, I really like to support the Europeans. It's just it's a it's a big trip to make for a short event. So usually when I go to Europe, I try to stay like 2 or 3 weeks because
Yeah.
it makes it worthwhile. This would be, this is basically a weekend, but it's a Sunday, and for me, Sundays are a big deal. And then I really enjoy doing the little retreats. The last little retreat I did at my sister's place was really wonderful, and it's so nice doing a doing a
I signed up for that, but something came up where I couldn't go right at the.
oh, you really
I was
missed.
actually
It
trying
was it
to.
was the last one we did was just incredible. It really was amazing. And my sister did a wonderful job hosting. To stay at my sister's place is a little rustic. She's kind of moved things around. I don't know if she'll have any lodgers anymore, but at least to host the place, and she provided all the food and
Yeah,
it was really good. So
if we have an incredibly low number of people, we can all just sit in one circle and just do an estuary kind of
that would be
thing.
really cool because you got some really great people coming. So all
So
right, Dave, really appreciate it. Really glad that you have launched this thing. And I really appreciate that Nate didn't die so he can actually attend it.
dude, I thought this would be like a memorial conference, but I'm so glad it's not.
Yeah, me too. All right. So thank you for being willing to come on the channel and tell us a little bit of your story. And you will find Dave October 17 and 18
Yeah, just
down at Lake Junaluska, North Carolina, 28745. And yeah, so I will end the recording.
all right. Thanks, Paul, so much.